Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of SBTDT. Today we're gonna get a little bit more complicated than usual. This time we're finally going to the point where we're really splitting from the motorcycle riding and any other kind of driving. As you know, in the previous videos I did many analogies between motorcycle and cars. For instance, we were talking about what happens when you brake with a motorcycle, where the weight goes to the front and the rear wheel loses grip, and the same happens to the car. When you brake, you have all the weight goes on the front wheels, and the rear wheels, they try to step out of a curve if you're in a curve. Well, today we're going to a point where this won't be possible anymore. We're going to be talking about geometry. The geometry of a car and the geometry of a motorcycle, they're completely different, and today we're going to exactly analyze why. On a car, as you know, when you drive, basically the driver's input, they cause the geometry changes. By using the steering and by using the pedals, the driver can change the geometry of the car. By, whatever happens with the wheels, they move up and down, they change weights. When we're making a curve with a car, the outside tires, they gain weight, the inside they lose it. If the car starts sliding, you counter steer with the steering wheel and you give weight back to those tires. Well, this doesn't happen on a motorcycle. As we all know, on a motorcycle, we lean into the curve, we don't lean outwards. And this is very, very important. We need to keep in mind that we have to lean in. And you will see a little later in this video why. It's a matter of geometry. And geometry on a motorcycle is very particular because it's made with a component that is not a mechanical component. Actually, the geometry is made not only by the bike, but also by the rider. By me, by you, by anyone that is driving a motorcycle, they are creating a geometry on the motorcycle itself. And the beauty of it is that by moving our bodies on the motorcycle, we change this geometry. That's really the key. I mean, on a car, you can move your body as much as you want around. The car is not going to change geometry. On a motorcycle, I can vary the shape of the bike. I can change the center of gravity to make the motorcycle do something else. And it's all done through my body. Now, the key point on the body, of course, it's the heaviest part of the body. And what is the heaviest part of the body? Well, I think we all know. It's the head. I named other times in the past, and I'm naming it again. The head. The head is the heaviest part of the body. And in our case, it's going to be a key element in changing the geometry of a motorcycle. I said this in the past, and I'm going to say it again. When we are on the racetrack, on our motorcycle, we are playing a game which is a game of playing with the laws of physics. The laws of physics, they are the special laws because they're not like federal and state law where if someone is really sneaky, they manage to get away with it for a few times until they get caught. No, laws of physics, you don't sneak around. If you break them, they get you. And the point is that even when they get you, they still make you play by their own laws by making you crash. So the only way to be really good is to learn all these laws and play with it. We can use this physics at our own advantage. Explaining all this stuff is going to be long. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to already apologize at this point in the video. It's going to take a while to explain all of this. And I'm going to try to break this video in two parts. Today we're going to talk about the theory. Next time I'm going to try to sit on my motorcycle and show you what I meant by showing what we're talking about right now. But for now, let's get to this point. What is the geometry of a motorcycle? How is the geometry of a motorcycle? Think about in your head, what would you think about the geometry of a motorcycle? Well, if you guessed somewhat of a triangle, you're pretty much there. At least that's the way I visualize it. Of course, you know, every person can visualize a motorcycle differently, and there is people that they like to explain it with the two pipes that they stand on top of each other. Another one explains it with the TV trays. I like to explain it with a triangle. And to be honest, what I've done, and you guys are gonna laugh, but I built this little thing. A motorcycle, in my point of view. Or at least this is how I see a motorcycle when I look at it. So, what is the geometry of a motorcycle? The two contact patches with the ground, they are the first 2 points. So, the front wheel and the rear wheel, they are the base. Then, the third point is the heaviest point on the geometry changer, which is our head. And it's up here. So, here we go with the triangle. Tire, tire, head. We have a triangle. This is the geometry of a motorcycle. At least, you know, the way that I explain it. I hope you guys are gonna like it. Definitely there is gonna be people that is gonna say, oh, this is BS. Let's keep in mind, you know, every person has a different way of visualizing things. If you ask some people, they see racetracks like animals. That's fine. Ask Ben Spies. For him, any racetrack is an animal. In our case, this is the way I see a motorcycle, a triangle. The beauty of a motorcycle is that it's not a solid piece. It's not just a triangle like a normal geometrical shape, because the motorcycle can change shape. So, how does it change shape? Well, let's put it this way. I'm gonna answer to a question that I received from a few viewers. They were asking me, is it normal that my motorcycle tends to go wide out of a corner when I open the throttle? Yes, sure. The motorcycle will always tend to go wide when you're coming out of a corner. Why? Well, the reason is simple. If you think about the front wheel, let's start talking about the front of the bike. We're going to go one step at a time. The front of the bike, front wheel, is attached to the forks. The forks, they are not vertical down, they're not just down like that, they are in an angle, they are forward. So if you think about it, this wheel, when it's pushed down, I mean when we're braking, so it's pushed up, it comes upwards and back. It gets closer to the rear wheel. Whereas when we accelerate, the fork extends, and so the wheel goes away from the rear wheel. That extends the wheelbase. Think about your motorcycle, a SuperBike, and the motorcycle of someone that extended the swing arm to do drag racing. If they want to do a turn, they're going to have to do it crazy wide because they have such a long trail between one wheel and the other. There is so much space. Instead, if you want to bike the corners quick, you need to keep the trail between the wheels closer. Well, the key in the bike geometry is that while we ride it, the distance between the front and the rear wheel, the trail, changes. Why does it change? Well, mainly because of the rake angle, which is the angle of the forks, how inclined they are. Due to that angle, when the wheel comes up and down, gets closer and farther from the rear wheel. To put it in the triangle view, these are our front forks. You can see that they are in an angle. And this is our trail or wheelbase, okay? Well, we are coming out of a corner and we open the throttle. We open the throttle, the fork extends. In order to extend the fork, you need to get away from the wheelbase. See, red, red. We just extended our trail between the front and the rear wheel. The bike will go wider. This is the moment where the bike will go wider. There is nothing to do, it's normal. And probably you notice that if you are initiating a corner and you clip a little bit the brakes, the bike turns tighter, and for sure that happens because when you push the forks down, the wheelbase becomes shorter. It's as simple as that. So, this is what's happening in the front. The front wheel goes up and down, not vertically, but in an angle. This causes it to become closer or farther from the rear wheel. But let's keep in mind that the rear wheel itself also has some changes. The rear wheel, as we know, is attached to a swing arm. A swing arm, well, it swings. The name itself says it, but the point is that it makes an arc. It's arcing. So right now it's closer to the front, now it's farther, now it's closer again. It's arcing. So it's a matter of adjustment in the back, really, because we cannot play as much with the rear as much as we can do with the front. The rear adjustment, when you adjust the suspension, if you set it in a certain way, you can cause even to have the chain to pull the swing arm closer to your front wheel and try to compensate the effect of the extension of the forks. But really, this is going to be something we will talk about in the future. This is a more complicated thing. We're going to be talking about suspension setup and the rear geometry. There are even some bikes that have reversed geometry, in which case when you open the throttle, the swing arm really compensates the extension of the forks. Not entirely, but in a good manner. For now, we're going to stick with the front and we're going to talk about the head, because the head is heavy. And the head is a key factor in changing the bike geometry. If you remember, last time we spoke about braking, how to brake before entering in a corner. We were saying how when you're, before you enter a corner, let's say that we're like this, we're on the straightaway. Before you enter a corner, you need to put your body backwards to give weight to the rear wheel. Because when you brake, you take away weight from the rear wheel. So, before you take the weight away, you try to give as much as you can. How? By leaning your body backwards. I'm leaning my body backwards and the front fork just extended even further. At this point I'm like this. Now I'm going to apply the brakes, front forks gets compressed and my trail between the wheels just became shorter. I'm ready to enter the corner. Look how my center of gravity is low now. Need to keep it low. Be careful, because your head is the key point in making a corner. The head is the highest point in the motorcycle, and it's also the heaviest that we have available to move around, so we really need to use it. The more we keep the head close to the ground, the lower our center of gravity is. I mean, would you rather do a corner while you are like this? Or would you rather do it while you are like this? Definitely we want to be like this, and possibly as short as we can with the wheelbase too. The shorter, the quicker the bike is going to turn. So, what am I talking about right now? What's going on in this thing about doing a corner like this? Is this possible? Yeah, I see a lot of people doing that, unfortunately. That's a really dangerous situation. That's a recipe for a high side. Let's put it this way. How can you do a corner? This is your motorcycle and you need to enter in a corner. Well, the proper way to do it is that you lean your head into the corner. So let's lean the head into the corner. Now my head is leaning and so is pulling the bike down, but the bike tendentially remains up, remains more upward, and I'm leaning the bike as much as I can. Like this I can do the corner. But a lot of times what I see people doing, and that's just because of an instinct that we have, is that we tend to keep the head up and just push the bike down like this. This is extremely, extremely dangerous. To just try to visualize a little bit, and we will explain this further in the next video where I will have my bike, but let's put it this way. Our instinct wants to keep our head as far away possible from the fast moving thing. What's the fast moving thing? The asphalt. When we're sitting on the bike, we are stationary compared to the bike, everything else is running crazy fast. Our instinct wants to stay away from it, and that's exactly what we do. We stand up with our head, but we push the bike down. Now I'm turning that way, but I am sitting up the opposite way as the bike. In this case, what I'm causing is that I'm leaning the bike down a lot while I'm pulling it with my body, with my head, in the opposite way. This is the recipe for a high side. At this point, it's a moment that the bike shoots me up because I am like this. And this is really dangerous situation, staying in this position. We don't want this. What we want is this. This is exactly what we want. We want the bike standing up forward as much as we can and leaning more. Why? Well, we're talking about contact patch. Going back to our geometry, there is also this side of the geometry. Contact patch with the rubber of our tires. When the bike is standing up forward, we have a wider contact patch touching the ground. As more as the bike leans down, 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 the less contact patch we have. Less contact patch means less grip. Less grip means that we cannot go too fast on the corner. The least grip we have, the slower we're going to have to go. But we can play with the geometry. We can lower the center of gravity on a motorcycle and increase our, let's call it insurance grip, from this to this, just by moving our body in the proper position. The position that the body needs to achieve is the one that lowers the most the center of gravity. So rather than pushing the bike down into the corner to do the corner like this, we want to lift the bike up and lean our body down as much as we can. Our head, we need to bring it as close as we can to the ground, just like this, and leaving the bike straight up forward as much as we can. This gives us sort of an insurance to play with, because if we lean less the bike and we turn with our body, in an emergency case we can just play around a little bit. We have insurance. If you already have the bike maximized down on the very edge of the tire and here comes something in front of me and I'm sitting up like that, the bike is going to go on me. It's going to shoot me up in the air. There is nothing that you can do because you had so little tire on the ground that you were in a very, very delicate balance. It's like walking on a barbed wire. You know, if you want to stand on top of a barbed wire, you're going to just get hurt. And that's the same with a bike. The thing that you want to do is to lean your body into the corner, maximizing the contact patch by minimizing the lean angle. To minimize the lean angle of the motorcycle, you have to lean your body as much as you can. I'm not saying that you don't lean the bike down. Keep in mind that when I'm doing this, in reality the bike is coming down. I think you guys saw in the videos and also the pictures that I've been posting in my channel that my bike is leaning down. But the point is that the center of gravity of my bike becomes so low with my body position that it's fine. In that point, you know, I have a lower center of gravity. It's like comparing an SUV with a Ferrari. A Ferrari is definitely going to corner better because it's lower onto the ground. Well, I need to morph my bike geometry into a Ferrari. How do I do that? By leaning my head as low as I can. That changes my geometry, the center of gravity and the geometry. At that point, the bike will handle the corner faster. It will allow me to maintain a higher speed. Of course, we need to keep in mind that everything else is changing, so we cannot do too many changes all at once. The geometry changes, they need to be done one at a time, basically. Otherwise, the bike tends to get upset, you get into sliding and stuff like that. So, leaning our head, it's heavy, we use our head to bring the bike down. The bike changes geometry. When you brake, okay, so when you brake, you just shorten the wheelbase. You open the throttle, the wheelbase is longer. Wider turns, tighter turns. Wider turns, tighter turns. This is how the bike changes shape continuously. We need to play with it. Let's remember, before you enter a corner, first you lean the body backwards, then you brake, you lean down into the corner, and then when you come out of the corner, you come back up on top of the bike and start opening the throttle. The wheelbase stretches, but who cares about the wheelbase stretching while you're on the straightaway? Eventually you don't want to wheelie. which means that you try to lean your body as forward as you can. But this is how the geometry of a motorcycle changes. So keep in mind that this, it's a key factor in anticipating movements that the motorcycle will do under you while you're riding it. And remember that you are part of the geometry of the bike, so you need to play with it. Remember, the geometry of a bike is not solid. It changes shape, it's a shapeshifter. You can play with it, you just have to do it the right way by using your body. So remember, the bike is a triangle, but you can change shape. Just use your head.